At 62, I thought I was set for a quiet life. Then I heard my son's voice, laughing on the phone. "Mom, what face would you make if you were broke?" He had just taken everything. I spent my whole life as an auditor, hunting fraud. I just never thought the biggest fraudster I'd ever meet would be my own child. He has no idea who he just crossed. My name is Elaine Porter. At 62 years old, I live alone in the quiet suburbs of Riverton, Ohio, in the house Mark and I built together. I had only been gone 10 minutes, halfway to the hardware store, when I realized I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter. I pulled back into the driveway, letting myself in through the garage, expecting the comfortable silence of an empty home. Instead, I heard my son, Jason, in the kitchen. He was laughing. It wasn't his usual warm, easy laugh. This was a sharp, triumphant cackle that stopped me dead in the hallway. I stood frozen, my grocery list clutched in my hand. He was on the phone, the speaker loud enough for me to hear both sides. "Mom, what face would you make if you were broke?" He laughed again, a harsh, ugly sound that didn't sound like him at all. He was bragging to his wife, Lena. He was telling her it was done. He had just finished transferring the last of the money, everything. My retirement account, the savings, the entire nest egg Mark and I had scraped together for 40 years. He said it was all sitting safely in a new account under Lena's name at Blue Harbor Bank. I leaned back against the cool plaster of the hallway, my breath catching in my throat. I couldn't move. Jason kept talking, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction as he laid out their plan. He would pretend to be surprised. Of course. He'd blame a system hack, some offshore cyber threat. He'd promised to help me get to the bottom of it, driving me to the bank, sitting through useless meetings, all to delay me, just long enough for them to liquidate everything, pushing it through cryptocurrency exchanges and a maze of hidden accounts until it was untraceable. Then I heard him call me the gullible old woman. That single phrase did more damage than the theft. It felt like every memory I had of him teaching him to ride a bike, celebrating his college acceptance, holding him at Mark's funeral, was being systematically torn apart and set on fire. I gripped the wooden doorframe beside me, my knuckles white, digging my nails into the painted wood until I felt a sharp, grounding pain. I could feel the sticky warmth of blood on my palm, but it was the only thing keeping me from collapsing onto the floor. As the shock began to clear, replaced by a cold dread, the details started to click into place. Those small, confusing transactions I'd noticed over the last few months. The consulting fees and internal adjustments that made no sense. When I'd asked Jason, he had just smiled, patting my arm and brushing it off as complex investment strategies far too boring to explain. I had let it go. I had trusted him. Then Lena's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and greedy. She wasn't satisfied. She was already pushing for the next step. She wanted Jason to schedule an appointment with my family doctor, to convince him to sign paperwork noting my dwindling cognitive state. They were going to paint me as senile. They were angling for full guardianship. A scream built in my chest, hot and raw. I wanted to storm into that kitchen, to smash that phone, to demand how the boy I raised could become this monster. But I held it in. The part of me that spent 35 years as an internal auditor, the part of me that sniffed out fraud, that followed paper trails, that knew exactly how liars operated suddenly clicked on. It was a cold, sharp feeling in the pit of my stomach. If I confronted them now, without a plan, without proof beyond what I'd overheard, They would just deny it. They would erase the tracks, lock me out, and accelerate their plan to have me declared incompetent. I backed away, my stocking feet silent on the hardwood floor. I moved like a thief in my own home, retreating through the garage. My heart hammered against my ribs, so loud I was sure he could hear it. Outside, the illusion of my life was still intact. The sun was shining. A neighbor's dog barked. A few kids were riding their bikes down the street. It was just another peaceful afternoon in Riverton, Ohio, but a hurricane had just torn through my chest. I got into the driver's seat, my hands shaking so violently I dropped the keys twice. I finally jammed the key into the ignition, but I didn't start the car. I just sat there, breathing. I picked up the phone I had come back for. My fingers felt thick and numb, but I managed to open the Blue Harbor Bank app. I navigated to my retirement account. The balance stared back at me. $0 and 0 cents. Everything Mark and I had ever worked for. Gone. Vanished with a few taps on a screen by my only son. The 0 on the screen blurred as the numbness in my hands turned into a full-body tremor. My mind recoiled from the kitchen, from that sickening laugh, and drifted back to the beginning, when the numbers meant something different. I remembered the grit of the Midwestern winters and the smell of diesel. My husband, Mark, and I had built Northline Freight from absolutely nothing. We started with one used truck and a ledger book I balanced on the dining room table. We poured our youth into that company, working 18-hour days, missing holidays, putting every penny we earned right back into the business. We built it, fought for it, and finally, after 30 years, we sold it for a very good price. It was our reward. It was supposed to be our future. We only got a few years of that peace. Mark passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. It was fast, brutal, and left a hole in my life that I knew would never be filled. While I was juggling his hospital visits and chemo schedules, I'd started a small financial consulting service on the side, just to keep my mind sharp, using those internal audit skills I'd honed before Northline. After he was gone, Jason was all I had left. He wasn't just my son. He was my whole world. The focus of every hope, every bit of love I still had to give. I see it now. The signs I chose to ignore. The red flags I painted white. When Jason was maybe 8 or 9, I found a handful of change and a few dollar bills hidden deep inside a toy chest. It was money I'd left on my dresser. It wasn't much. Mark was furious. He recognized the deceit in it. He wanted to ground him, to teach him a hard, necessary lesson about stealing. But I couldn't bear to see him disciplined. I made excuses. I told Mark he must have been saving it, or maybe I'd given it to him and forgotten. He's just curious. Honey? I'd insisted. He'll grow out of it. I forced myself to believe it. When we sold Northline Freight, we made sure Jason was looked after. We gave him a substantial portion, more than enough for him to launch his own digital marketing company. He called it Skyrail Media. The rest, the bulk of our life's work, I carefully allocated into my retirement fund, into bonds, and into high-yield savings accounts. All of it secured, I thought, at Blue Harbor Bank. Then, 2 years ago, Jason brought Lena home. She was beautiful, in that sharp, sculpted way that costs a lot of money at spas and clinics. She was nearly 10 years younger than him. Her voice was pure sugar, and she wrapped herself around me in a hug, calling me Mom the very first time we met. It was so fast, so intimate. It left me feeling warm, but also slightly off balance, like I'd missed a step. After their lavish wedding at the Riverton Grand, Lena's manufactured sweetness developed an edge. Her conversations, always masked by that perfect, bright smile, began to circle. They always landed on money. Where did I keep my assets? Who was my executor? Did I have a robust life insurance policy? She collected the answers like a hummingbird collecting nectar, quick and light. But she never forgot a single detail. Jason started visiting less. The excuses piled up. He had a major project at Skyrail. Lena wasn't comfortable in my drafty old house. When he did come by, usually alone, the visit always ended with an awkward pause. Then the request. He needed a temporary loan, just to float an investment, just until a big client paid. He always forgot to pay it back. And I, desperate to be the supportive mother, terrified of pushing him further away, I always let it slide. The final piece, the mechanism for my ruin, fell into place 6 months ago. Jason sat right there in my kitchen, his expression full of practiced concern. He was worried about me, he said, living all alone. He suggested I sign a power of attorney, just for the Blue Harbor accounts. Just in case, Mom, he'd said, his eyes meeting mine. What if you fell? What if something happened and you couldn't manage things? I just want to be able to take care of you. I hesitated. A small, cold bell went off in the back of my auditor's brain. It's a terrible risk, it whispered, but I silenced it. This was Jason, my son, the boy I had protected. I signed the papers, sitting in my car, staring at the empty account. I finally allowed myself to connect the dots. It wasn't a random act. It was a conspiracy. Lena, with her constant, casual mentions of a new Tesla and the lake house she'd bookmarked. Jason, my son, who always spent just a little more than he had. The boy who took the change from the dresser. And me, the gullible old woman. The sole obstacle. The one con moi, standing right in the middle of them and the life they felt they deserved. I sat in that hardware store parking lot for nearly an hour, the 0.00 on the Blue Harbor app burning an afterimage into my vision. The world had gone silent, muffled. I couldn't drive. My hands were shaking too badly to hold the wheel. When I could finally move, I knew there was only one person I could call. I scrolled past Jason's name, a wave of bile rising in my throat, and pressed the contact for Donna Reyes. Donna and I have been friends for 30 years. She's a formidable woman in her early 60s, a proud Latina American who spent her entire career as a 911 dispatcher for the county. She has seen the absolute worst of people and has zero tolerance for deception. She's semi-retired now, working part-time at the city library. But that steel-trap mind and dispatcher's bluntness never left her. She picked up on the second ring. Elaine, you're quiet. You okay? The dam broke. The words flooded out of me in a ragged, whispered torrent. The kitchen, the phone call, Lena's name, the account at Blue Harbor, and finally, the question itself. Mom, what face would you make if you were broke? There was a heavy, dangerous silence on the other end of the line. When Donna finally spoke, her voice was ice. That son of a bitch, that absolute bastard, wearing a good son's costume. Donna, I don't know what to do. I choked out, the tears finally coming, hot and furious. I'm going to go back there. You are going to do nothing, she snapped, her old dispatcher command voice cutting right through my panic and stopping me cold. Absolutely nothing. You hang up. You dry your face. You go home. And you act as if you just forgot your phone and had to come back. You pretend today is just another Tuesday. They think they're smart. They think they're in control. We are going to let them keep thinking that. But my money, Donna, it's all gone. Forget the money for right now. Elaine, it's just a number. This is fraud. And you know fraud. You were the best damn auditor Northline ever had. So, you're going to be an auditor again. Tonight, you're going to sit down with a legal pad. You're going to make a timeline of every single transaction for the last 6 months. Every consulting fee. Jason explained away. And then, you're going to write down every single word you heard in that kitchen. Verbatim. That is your new full-time job. She was right. The auditor in me, the part that had been dormant, began to stir, pushing past the wounded mother. A cold, analytical fury started to replace the grief. I realized, listening to her, that my maternal instincts had been the enemy. They had blinded me. But the part of me that could track a paper trail through a dozen shell companies, that part was wide awake. I knew in that moment, recalling Lena's push for guardianship, that this wasn't just a robbery. It was an erasure. If I was soft, if I let the mother in me forgive this, they wouldn't stop until I was legally declared incompetent, locked away while they lived in my house and spent my life's work. I'm still here. Elaine, Donna said, her voice a little softer. And I still know people. A lot of people. Folks in economic crimes, a few assistant DAs, people who really, really hate elder abuse. But we don't move until we have an ironclad case. I'll be your backup memory. I'll be the one who reminds you to stay cold when your heart wants to get warm. You can't let him play you. Meet me, I said, my voice suddenly firm. The old diner on the highway. Now. We sat in a cracked, red vinyl booth that smelled of stale coffee. In 90 minutes. We had the framework of a war. It would be fought on 3 fronts. One financial. We would approach Blue Harbor Bank, not as a panicked victim, but as a financial professional flagging irregularities. 2 legal. Donna would make a quiet call to the Kingsway County Prosecutor's Office. This wasn't a civil suit. This was a criminal conspiracy. 3 psychological. We had to get Jason and Lena to incriminate themselves again. Only this time, we'd be listening. The hardest part, I knew, was first. I had to go home. I had to sleep in the same house where my life was dismantled. He already has his script, I said, staring into my cup. He's going to pretend to be shocked. He's going to offer to take me to the bank himself. Good, Donna said, sliding out of the booth. Then you let him. You play the part of the gullible old woman he thinks you are. You follow his script perfectly, right up until the moment we hand him ours. While sitting in the car, before driving home, I downloaded a new app. A discreet voice recorder. One that could be activated from a locked screen with a single touch. I practiced it twice. I was ready for any future conversation with my son. As I was about to leave the parking lot, Donna tapped on my window. I rolled it down, and she leaned in, her expression deadly serious. Elaine, she said. The second he used that sentence to laugh at your potential ruin, he stopped being your son. He's just the perpetrator. You are not fighting your child. You are fighting a criminal. And if you don't fight, if you don't bury him with this, he and that woman will do it to someone else. And that someone might be another mother who doesn't have your strength. The next morning, I walked into the downtown branch of Blue Harbor Bank. The air conditioning was cold, and it helped solidify the ice that was forming in my veins. I was no longer a grieving mother. I was an auditor beginning an engagement. I asked for the branch manager, Caleb Moore. Caleb was a sharp man in his 30s, someone I'd met a few times when I'd given pro bono talks at his senior financial literacy seminars. He greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Porter. What a pleasant surprise. What can I do for you?" "Caleb," I said, keeping my voice level and professional. "I need to review some recent activity on my retirement and savings accounts. I'm seeing some discrepancies I can't reconcile." His smile tightened. He led me into his glass-walled office and typed at his keyboard. The color drained from his face. "Elaine," he said, dropping the Mrs. Porter. Oh my God. "Just the facts. Caleb. What do you see?" He turned the monitor. There were 3 major transfers over the last 3 weeks. One for $200,000, one for $150,000, and a final one just yesterday for $170,000. A total of $520,000. He swallowed. "They were all moved from your accounts to a high-yield savings account under the name Lena Cross." The number felt like a physical blow. 520,000. It was more than I even realized I had liquid. "All of them," he continued, scrolling, "were authorized by the power of attorney you signed over to Jason Porter 6 months ago. From the bank's perspective, Elaine, they're completely valid." I felt the room tilt, a wave of nausea rolling over me, but I didn't cry. The auditor clicked on. "I need hard copies," I said. My voice was sharp, and it made him sit up straighter. "I want a full printout of the transaction history for all my accounts for the last 12 months. I want a certified copy of the power of attorney document. I want every digital signature, IP address, and login timestamp associated with Jason's access. Now." Caleb, seeing the shift in me from client to investigator, went into high compliance mode. "Of course," he said, his fingers flying. "Elaine, you need to understand. The bank's hands are tied unless you are willing to file an official report. We can't freeze Lena's account without cause. But if you file a complaint alleging elder financial abuse, that's a criminal matter. It triggers a mandatory investigation. But it means going after Jason. Formally." This was the crossroads. I looked at Caleb, a nice young man who just wanted to run his branch. And in that moment, I decided to give him half the truth, which was also a truth I was only just realizing myself. "I'm not completely destitute, Caleb," I said, the thought forming even as I spoke it. "My husband, Mark, he was a cautious man. He always kept a separate bolt-hole fund, just in case. It's at a small credit union across town. It's not much, maybe $90,000. He set it up so only I could access it, and Jason never knew it existed." As I said it, I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just a safety net, it was my war chest. And I would tell no one, not even Donna. If I was going to play the role of a woman pushed to the brink of ruin, I had to believe it myself. That $90,000 would pay for the lawyers, the investigators, whatever else I needed. All while Jason and Lena believed I was desperate and penniless. Caleb looked relieved. "Thank God for that," he whispered. He printed the stack of documents and handed me a business card. "This is a lawyer. He's the best in Riverton at this." I took the card, but knew I wouldn't use it. I called Donna as soon as I left the bank. When I told her the bank's position, she was succinct. Forget the civil lawyer. This is felony grand theft and conspiracy. We're going straight to the Kingsway County prosecutor. I'll make the call. That night, exactly as I knew he would, Jason stopped by. He had that perfect, concerned son look on his face. He brought me flowers. My stomach turned. After 10 minutes of small talk, he leaned forward. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice soft. "I was just thinking, you've seemed a little stressed about your finances lately. How about tomorrow? How about I take you to the bank? We can sit down, go over everything, just to make sure you're comfortable. Put your mind at ease." My hand went to my pocket, my thumb brushing the side of my phone, activating the recorder. I looked up at him, letting my eyes look watery and confused, just as Donna and I had rehearsed. "Oh, Jason, would you—" I said, my voice trembling just enough. "That would be wonderful. I was just on the app, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I'm just no good with these things. It must be some kind of system error. Don't you think?" He smiled, that warm, reassuring smile that had always worked on me. "I'm sure that's all it is. Mom, we'll get it sorted out tomorrow." He went into the kitchen to make popcorn, just like he used to. I watched him from the living room, a ghost in my own home. The pain was still there, a deep, maternal ache, but it was being overshadowed by something new. I was analyzing him, studying him, not as my son, but as a subject. I noticed the tiny, almost imperceptible muscle twitch at the corner of his left eye when he told me not to worry. I saw how he broke eye contact for a split second when he mentioned the bank. These were his tells. These were the signs I had spent a lifetime forcing myself not to see. And now, they were the only things I could. Donna's call got us a meeting at the Kingsway County Prosecutor's office the very next day. We were ushered into a small, functional office belonging to Monica Hale, an assistant district attorney. She was a black woman, perhaps 40, with a presence that was both unnervingly still and intensely focused. She didn't smile or offer platitudes. She just gestured to the 2 chairs opposite her desk. "Mrs. Porter, Ms. Reyes, I understand you have a sensitive matter." I laid out the stack of documents from Blue Harbor. I handed her my legal pad with the timeline. And then, my voice steady, I recounted the conversation I had overheard, ending with the exact quote, "Mom, what face would you make if you were broke?" Monica Hale didn't flinch, but I saw her eyes narrow. She read through my notes, then the bank logs. She looked up at me, and it felt like she was seeing, really seeing, the auditor beneath the victim. "Most people come in here crying, wanting me to just fix it," she said, her voice crisp. "You came in with a case file. You saved us 2 weeks of work." She tapped the logs. "Most people would have been advised to file a civil suit, but based on this," she held up my transcript of the conversation. "This isn't a misunderstanding. This is premeditated fraud." She explained the Ohio statute on elder financial abuse. "A power of attorney is not a blank check, Mrs. Porter. It does not give your son the right to use your assets for his personal gain, or his wife's, without your explicit, informed consent. His actions, as you've described them, constitute felony theft." She looked at me, her gaze unwavering. I'm willing to assign a financial investigator to this immediately, but I need to know you're all in. This will require you to continue playing your role. We will need you to participate in controlled, recorded conversations with both your son and his wife. We need to establish, unequivocally, their fraudulent intent from the beginning. Whatever it takes, I said. Donna just nodded, her arms crossed. Good, Monica said. She picked up her phone. Omar, I need you in my office. A man named Omar Price joined us minutes later. He had the tired eyes and rumpled suit of a man who lived behind a screen, chasing numbers. Monica laid out the case. Omar took the logs and my notes, and his eyes lit up in a way that was almost predatory. Blue Harbor to Lena Cross. He muttered. Apex Coin. Of course. What is Apex Coin? I asked. A fictitious crypto exchange, Omar said, already typing on his laptop. A popular one for this kind of wash. They move the money in, buy an untraceable coin, and then bounce it through a dozen different wallets. The money is effectively gone in 60 seconds. He worked for a few minutes, his expression grim. He's right. The $520,000 was transferred from Lena's account to an Apex Coin wallet almost immediately. Then he stopped, his brow furrowed. Oh, that's nasty, he whispered. What? Monica asked, leaning in. He didn't just transfer the money, Omar said, turning his screen. Your son, Jason. He used your forged signature to open a high-risk margin loan account on Apex Coin. He used your identity to borrow against assets that weren't even there. He's made you, Elaine, the sole bearer of risk. If that market crashes, you're not just broke. You're in debt to a platform that doesn't officially exist. It's a second, hidden layer of theft. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just taking my money. It was planting a bomb. Monica Hale stood up, her decision made. This is bigger than just Jason. I don't want to move on them yet. A sloppy arrest will just spook them, and they'll let the crypto vanish. She began to pace. No. We're going to get a warrant. We're going to watch them. We're going to let them get comfortable. Let them keep talking. Let them get sloppy. Omar is going to trace that money. And you, Elaine, are going to be the frightened, confused mother. We're going to build a case for an organized fraud scheme. Her focus shifted back to me, and the question she asked hit me harder than any of the financial revelations. This is going to get ugly, Elaine. And at some point, he is going to be arrested. He will be in handcuffs. He will look at you, and he will cry, and he will beg you to drop the charges. He'll promise to pay you back. He'll say Lena made him do it. So, you need to tell me right now when that moment comes. What are you going to do? I stared at her. The mother in me was screaming, a silent, primal howl. The auditor was silent. I had no answer. That question, I knew, would keep me awake for weeks. As Donna and I gathered our things, shaken but resolute, Monica stopped us at the door. One more thing, she said, pulling up a new file on her screen. I ran Lena Cross's name through the interstate system while we were talking. She turned the monitor. This isn't her first time at this rodeo. A very similar complaint was filed in Arizona 2 years ago. An older gentleman, recently widowed. He accused her of the exact same thing. Then, suddenly, he dropped the charges. A week later, he signed over his house to her. He died 6 months after that. The room went cold. The case was dropped, Monica said, her eyes like chips of flint. The victim refused to cooperate. We're not going to let that happen this time. Monica didn't let the Arizona file rest. She tasked Omar with digging into Lena's life before she arrived in Riverton, and the story he unearthed was chilling. The man in Arizona, Victor Ames, had been a widower in his late 60s. Lena had been his companion for just over a year. In that year, he liquidated his home, his stock portfolio, and his pension, pouring it all into vague investments she managed. Then, Lena disappeared. A year later, Victor Ames died of a massive heart attack, penniless and alone in a rented apartment. With no one to push the case, the file was officially closed as poor financial management. Monica was tenacious. She found Victor's sister, a woman named Ruth Ames, living in a small town in Kentucky. Monica called her. At first, Ruth was hesitant, but when Monica explained that another family was currently in the same situation, the woman broke down. She said Victor had been transformed by Lena, pushing away his family, accusing them of being jealous of his newfound happiness. He sold the family home he'd inherited, cashed out everything. By the time he realized the money and Lena were both gone, he was too ashamed to go to the police. Our family. We told him to just let it go. Ruth cried over the phone. We were embarrassed. We didn't want the neighbors to know a stranger had made a fool of him. She had never forgiven herself. When she heard my story, she wept. She agreed to overnight mail Monica every piece of paper she had saved from that nightmare. Monica set up a video call. I sat in her sterile, windowless office, looking at a laptop screen. Ruth Ames looked back at me. She was a woman in her late 60s, like me. Her hair was grey, her face lined with a different kind of sorrow, but her eyes were identical to mine. They held the same hollowed-out, exhausted emptiness. It was the look of someone who had watched a person they loved, a brother, a son, be systematically dismantled by an outsider, and who had been left to sweep up the pieces. We didn't need to say much. We just looked at each other, and we knew. With Ruth's documents, Omar assembled the full picture. Lena Cross was an alias, legally adopted 3 years ago. Before that, she had a different name in Florida and another in Texas. Each identity was trailed by a cloud of bad debt, sudden moves, and small claims suits that were abandoned when she vanished. She was a professional, a financial predator who targeted older Americans with assets and families she could isolate. While Omar built the case against Lena, I was managing my own front. The pressure was clearly getting to Jason. He began calling me 3, sometimes 4 times a day. His voice was perpetually strained, that easy confidence gone, replaced by a high, nervous energy. Just checking in? Mum? Everything okay? He would ask, a little too loud. You haven't gotten any strange letters from the bank, have you? Or any calls about system errors? He was probing, terrified that Blue Harbor had flagged the transfers and contacted me. He was waiting for me to panic. And with every call, my thumb would discreetly press the side of my phone, activating the recorder. No, dear, I'd say, my voice quavering just slightly. Everything seems fine. Why do you ask? Every nervous denial he gave me was another audio file I dutifully emailed to Monica Hale. Then, one evening, they ambushed me. They showed up at my door unannounced. Jason looking pale and Lena beaming, holding a bouquet of supermarket carnations. Surprise, she chirped. We brought dinner. She swept past me in a cloud of expensive perfume and gave me a hug that felt like being clamped by a cold mechanism. We ate takeout on my dining room table. Lena chattered endlessly about Sky Rail Media, while Jason just pushed food around his plate. Then, as I was getting up to clear the containers, Lena put her hand on my arm. "Mom," she said, her voice dripping with artificial concern. "Jason and I have been so worried about you. With all this stress about your investments. We were thinking, have you given any more thought to just signing the house over to us?" My blood ran cold. This was the next step. I steadied myself, summoning the frail, confused woman they wanted me to be. I followed Monica's script. "Oh, Lena, I just don't know," I whispered, putting a hand to my temple. "I'm under so much stress. I've been looking at some of my other accounts. And I think I'm losing money. The statements, they just don't make sense. I'm so afraid. I'm afraid of going broke." Jason, who had been silent, pounced on the opening. "See, Mom, this is exactly what we're talking about," he said, his voice earnest. "You're getting confused. You're stressing yourself out. You know? I think it's time we take you to see Dr. Evans. It's probably best if we get an official diagnosis. You know, for insurance. Just to make sure you're properly covered if your memory starts to get worse." They left soon after, convinced I was weakening. I locked the deadbolt behind them, my hands shaking with pure, unadulterated rage. I went to my car, sat in the dark, and played back the entire sickening conversation before sending it to Monica. Her response came 10 minutes later, a short, grim phone call. "They're not just after your money anymore, Elaine," she said, her voice hard. "They're after your life, your autonomy. They are actively building a case to have you declared incompetent. They want to seize your house, and they're going to use your own doctor to do it. We have to set the trap. Now." Monica and Omar moved fast. Their plan was a masterpiece of legal entrapment. I would, as Jason wished, agree to the doctor's appointment. The clinic, Lakeside Behavioral Care, was chosen by them. What Jason and Lena didn't know was that the behavioral specialist they were about to meet was a forensic psychiatrist employed by the state. And the receptionist who cheerfully checked me in was an undercover technician who had just activated 2 high-definition cameras in the consultation room. I let Jason and Lena guide me in, one on each arm. A perfect portrait of a concerned family. I played my part. I sat. I looked slightly confused. When the doctor asked me questions about my memory and my finances, I answered slowly. I stumbled over dates. I mixed up 2 of my old account numbers. I feigned a mild, embarrassed frustration, exactly as Monica had coached me. I looked, for all the world, like a woman who was beginning to fray. The doctor, a calm man with steady eyes, then turned to Jason and Lena. "This must be very difficult for you both. How are you managing her affairs?" Lena, sensing an ally, leaned forward, her voice radiating false sincerity. "Oh, doctor, it's been a nightmare. We're just trying to manage her assets so she doesn't have to worry about a thing. She gets so stressed. We're taking the full burden onto our shoulders." She spoke of me in the past tense, a problem to be solved, a heavy piece of luggage to be handled. While this performance was happening inside, Omar Price was sitting in an unmarked car down the street, his laptop tethered to his phone. He was monitoring the Apex Coin crypto wallets, He watched, in real time. As Lena, believing I was seconds away from being declared incompetent, pulled out her own phone in the doctor's office and approved a massive transfer. She was moving another large chunk of my money from the initial wallet into a deeper, secondary holding account. She thought the guardianship was a done deal. The final proof landed on Omar's screen an hour after the appointment. Having obtained a warrant, he was monitoring their cloud backups. A text message from Lena to Jason popped up. The doctor is completely convinced she's losing it. He's on our side. You need to push for the new POA on the house tonight before the bank freezes those accounts over suspicion. It was my turn to set the final trap. That afternoon, I called Jason, making sure my voice sounded thin and shaky. "Jason," I whispered, "I need to see you. I can't talk to Lena about this. It has to be just you. I've been thinking about the house. I want to get things settled before my mind gets any worse." I could hear the silent victory in his pause. He thought I was finally breaking, ready to hand over the last of my independence. "Of course. Mom," he said, his voice thick with fake sympathy. "I'll come right over." "No," I insisted. "Not here. Meet me for lunch. That old place, the Rusty Harbor, in an hour." I chose it specifically. It was a dark, working man's bar, the last place on earth his glamorous wife would ever be seen. He agreed, thinking he was coming to collect his inheritance. He arrived alone, sliding into the booth with a look of manufactured concern. My hand was already in my purse, my thumb securely on the record button of my phone. "I'm scared, Jason," I began, my script memorized. "I've been thinking, and I remembered something Mark left me. It's a secret account, a just-in-case fund. It's at a tiny credit union out in the countryside. I think there's about $90,000 in it." His eyes widened, just slightly. Greed is a terrible actor. "But Jason," I said, letting a tear roll down my cheek. "I tried to check it online this morning, and I can't remember the password. I can't remember the security questions. It's all just gone." He swallowed the bait so fast I almost felt pity. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. Mom, it's okay. This is exactly why I'm here. This is why you need me." He leaned in closer. "We just need to sign one more paper. A new power of attorney. Just for that account. I'll handle it. I'll get that money and move it somewhere safe for you. With the rest of it." He was so confident, so sure of his win, that he got sloppy. "You really don't understand how hard this is," he said, almost sighing. "Mom, do you have any idea how hard it was for us to get that other money out? Blue Harbor has so many security flags. We had to work for weeks to get that transfer done cleanly." I kept my face a perfect mask of grateful confusion. The recorder in my purse captured every syllable. He wasn't done. He plunged the knife in himself. "Lena is just trying to protect you. She's right. She's the one pushing for the full guardianship. Because if we don't move fast, you'll just spend all that secret money, or some other scammer will come along and take it from you. It's better this way. We just take full control, and you can finally stop worrying." He smiled at me, believing he had just secured the last $90,000. I smiled back, knowing I had just secured his prison sentence. I didn't wait until I got home. I sat in the parking lot of the Rusty Harbor, my hands shaking so badly I could barely operate my phone, and emailed the audio file to Monica. She called back within 5 minutes. Her voice was no longer strategic. It was cold iron. He confessed. He admitted to the transfers and confirmed the conspiracy for guardianship. We're done. I'm getting the arrest warrants signed by a judge right now. Lena for money laundering and felony elder abuse. Jason as a co-conspirator. We're not letting this go one step further. But they were already a step ahead. An hour later. Monica's frustrated voice was back on the line. They're gone. Elaine. The tactical team just hit their apartment. It's empty. Suitcases are gone. A neighbor said they left early this morning. Mentioned something about a long vacation in Florida. My stomach dropped. At the same time, Omar Price was watching his screen in horror. They're liquidating, he told Monica. A flurry of major transactions in the last 2 hours. They're moving everything from the Apex coin wallets to a decentralized foreign exchange. They're running. If that money settles, it's untraceable. I immediately called Donna, my voice cracking. They ran. Donna? They're gone to Florida. Florida's a decoy, Donna said, her voice sharp. It's too obvious. Wait. I heard her snap her fingers over the phone. Silverpine Lake. Jason was bragging a few months ago about a wealthy client from Skyrail. Said the guy had a cabin at Silverpine Lake, about 3 hours north. No cell service, terrible Wi-Fi, he said. A perfect place to go offline. That's where you go when you don't want to be found. I relayed the tip to Monica. A new, far more dangerous plan was formed in seconds. They're running, Monica said, but they're greedy. They still think that $90,000 is on the table. We're going to use it. I was brought to an unmarked car in the prosecutor's office garage. Monica and Omar sat with me. My phone was plugged into their recording equipment. The speaker on. I dialed Jason's number. It rang once, twice, then clicked. What? His voice was breathless and sharp. Jason. I screamed, letting all the genuine terror I felt pour into my voice. Oh my God, Jason. A letter. A letter just came from the bank. They're investigating the transfers. They're using the word fraud. They're talking to the police. What do we do? There was a long, static-filled pause. Shut up, he hissed. Don't say anything else. Not on this line. It could be tapped. I heard him breathing, ragged and fast. Where are you? I'm in my car. I'm just driving. I'm terrified. Go to the cabin, he commanded. The Silverpine cabin. You know the one. Drive there now. I'll meet you. We will figure this out. Once and for all. He hung up. Monica looked at me, her eyes dark. He's there. He took the bait. My heart was a fist hammering against my ribs. This wasn't a bank. This wasn't an office. I was about to drive 3 hours to a secluded cabin to confront the man who had tried to destroy me. Monica was in the passenger seat. 2 unmarked cars, carrying 4 plainclothes officers, followed 2 miles behind us. We were a silent, grim procession. He's expecting a victim. Elaine, Monica said quietly as we drove through the dark countryside. He's expecting the gullible old woman. This is your moment. You have to finish this. The cabin was deep in the woods, at the end of a long gravel road. As I pulled my car to a stop, Jason stumbled out onto the porch. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved, and his eyes were wide and panicked. In the car he'd arrived in, parked near the trees, I could see the silhouette of Lena in the passenger seat, watching. They thought I had come alone. I got out of the car, my legs feeling like jelly. Monica was crouched low in the passenger seat, out of sight. A tiny microphone was pinned to my coat. "Jason, the letter," it said. "Give me the account information," he snapped, cutting me off. He walked right up to me, his face desperate. "That secret account. The 90,000. We need it. Now. We can use it to fix this." I can't," I stammered, playing the part to the very end. "I told you. I can't remember the password." The panic in his eyes vanished. It was replaced by a cold, flat rage I had never seen before. He took a step closer, towering over me. "You're going to stop playing games." "Mom," he said, his voice a low, vicious snarl. "You are going to sign a new power of attorney, right here, right now, for everything. Or, I swear to God, we are driving straight from this cabin to the courthouse, and we are filing the psychiatrist's evaluation. We will get guardianship by the end of the day. You will either give us control, or we will take it, by any means necessary." He had made his final move. I looked up at the son I no longer recognized and felt the last ounce of maternal love die. From the car, just feet away, Monica Hale spoke quietly into her radio, a command that cut through the silent woods. "That's the threat. Move in. Now." The woods exploded. Before Jason could even react, 2 officers were on him, pinning his arms behind his back. Lena, seeing the officers emerge from the woods behind my car, tried to throw her own vehicle into reverse, but her tires just spun in the loose gravel as another car blocked her exit. An officer pulled her from the driver's seat. It all happened in less than 10 seconds. The moment the cuffs clicked onto Jason's wrists, his rage evaporated, replaced by a pathetic, blubbering panic. Mom, what is this? Tell them?" Lena, however, was pure venom. "You set us up," she screamed, her voice cracking. "You bitch, it was entrapment, you trapped us." Jason just kept repeating the same phrase, over and over, as they walked him to a car, his words making me feel sicker than the theft itself. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was just trying to save you. I was saving you from yourself. Mum, I'm sorry." The drive back to Riverton was a blur. Donna met me at the Kingsway County Station, her hand a warm, solid presence on my back as Monica led us through a maze of sterile hallways. In the interrogation rooms, the 2 of them showed their true colors. Lena was a block of ice. She said only 5 words, "I want my lawyer." And then, silence. She just sat there, staring at the wall, a portrait of bored defiance. Jason, Monica told me, tried the same tactic. He sat in silence for the first 20 minutes, but he wasn't a professional. He was just a weak man who had been caught. Omar Price and another detective simply laid the evidence on the table in front of him, one piece at a time. The bank logs, the Apex coin transactions, the forged margin loan application in my name, the text messages from Lena about the psychiatrist. And finally, they played the audio from the Rusty Harbor, when Jason heard his own voice cheerfully admitting, "Mom, do you have any idea how hard it was for us to get that other money out?" His entire composure shattered. He began to sob, a deep, rattling, ugly sound. That's when Monica made her move. She paused the recording and offered him the only lifeline he had. "She has you, Jason," Monica said. "You're looking at 10 to 15 years, minimum. But we both know who the architect was. You have one chance. You cooperate. You tell us everything about Lena. Not just this, but Arizona, Victor Ames. You give us the keys to every crypto wallet. You testify. If you do that, if you give us the whole case, I can recommend a reduced sentence. But, she added, her voice flat, it's not up to me. It's up to your mother. They brought me into a small, private conference room. Monica laid it out, as blunt as ever. Here's the choice. Elaine. We have enough to put them both away for a long time. We can go to trial, and you can watch me burn them to the ground for the maximum. Or, we use him. We offer Jason a deal. He pleads guilty, testifies against Lena, and helps Omar recover the assets, including the money from the Ames estate. In return, he gets a significantly lighter sentence, but the deal only stands if you, as the primary victim, agree to it. She looked at me. Do you want to crush them both? Or do you want to give your son a chance in exchange for guaranteeing Lena is locked away for good, and that you get your money back? My head was spinning. Donna saw it. Give her 5 minutes. Counselor, she said, pulling me by the arm out into the empty, fluorescent-lit hallway. She put her hands on my shoulders. Listen to me. Elaine, before you answer, before that mother instinct kicks in, you remember him laughing in your kitchen. You remember him calling you a gullible old woman. You remember him and that witch planning to have you declared insane. You remember him at that cabin, threatening to take your life away. That is who you are making a deal with, not the boy you raised. I closed my eyes. I saw 2 futures. In one, I stood on a pyre of my own rage and resentment, watching them both get maximum sentences, living the rest of my life fueled by that hatred. In the other, I made a strategic move. I sacrificed the full measure of my revenge on Jason in order to guarantee the complete and total destruction of Lena's predatory enterprise. It was the auditor's choice. I'll do it, I said to Donna. But I need to see him. One more time. They put me in the interrogation room with him. There was a glass window between us, a small speaker grill. No hugs, no contact, just me, a woman, facing the man who had severed our bond. His face was a wreck, blotchy and swollen from crying. The second he saw me, the tears started again. Mum, please, please, you have to help me. Help you. My voice was so cold, it barely sounded like my own. Lena, she made me do it. He choked out. She got in my head. She told me I was weak. She knew. She knew I always felt like I was just the truck owner's son, that I never really earned anything. She kept saying it was my money anyway, that I was entitled to it, that you'd just waste it. She said taking it wasn't stealing. It was just taking my inheritance early. Please, Mom, I'll pay it all back, I swear. Just give me a chance. Please. I listened to every pathetic, sniveling excuse. I listened to him blame his childhood. Blame me. Blame this woman he had willingly conspired with. I felt nothing. No anger. No pity. Just an absolute, hollow quiet. I didn't answer him. I turned my head slightly, looking past him, at the dark reflection in the 2-way mirror where I knew Monica was watching. I will agree to the strategy, I said, my voice clear and carrying to the hidden microphone. I will not stand in the way of a plea bargain for my son, but here are my conditions. I want a binding legal guarantee, enforced by the court, that he is permanently barred from ever accessing my finances, my property, or my medical records. And in exchange for his cooperation, I expect your office to use every tool, every piece of evidence, every victim's story, to ensure that Lena Cross receives the absolute, longest, maximum sentence that the law allows. And I want Jason's sentence to be long enough that he is forced, for the first time in his life, to truly understand what he has done. The trial of Lena Cross and Jason Porter began at the Kingsway County Courthouse. The room was standing room only. Monica Hale, in a brilliant legal move, had successfully petitioned to have my case, the Victor Ames file from Arizona, and 2 other newly discovered victim cases from Florida and Texas consolidated. This was no longer a simple family dispute. It was a multi-state case of organized elder fraud. The evidence, when Monica presented it, was an avalanche. It was neat, chronological, and damning. The Blue Harbor bank logs, Omar's meticulous charts tracing the money through the Apex coin exchange, the text messages from Lena to Jason, cold-bloodedly planning my psychiatric evaluation. And then, the audio. First, the recording from my kitchen. The courtroom was dead silent as my son's voice filled the air, laughing as he asked, "Mum, what face would you make if you were broke?" But the climax, the moment the jury visibly turned, was the recording from the Rusty Harbor. They heard my shaky, confused voice speak of the secret account. And then they heard Jason's confident, condescending reply, his unforced confession, Mom. "Do you have any idea how hard it was for us to get that other money out? I saw a juror, a woman my age, close her eyes." Lena, sitting at the defendant's table, turned and looked at Jason with an expression of pure, unadulterated hatred. He had been a fool, and his foolishness was dragging her down. When it was my turn to testify, I didn't cry. I simply told the truth. I told them about building Northline Freight from scratch. I told them about the day Jason was born, the feeling of his weight in my arms. And then, I told them what it felt like to stand in my own hallway and listen to that same person plot my ruin for money. My voice didn't waver. It was steady. And as Monica later told me, it was as heavy as a hammer. Lena's lawyer tried to paint her as a pawn. He was slick, blaming Jason's deep-seated childhood trauma and financial insecurities, portraying Lena as nothing more than a supportive, loving wife who got swept up in her husband's misguided plans. Monica dismantled him in under an hour. She produced the evidence from Arizona, the evidence from Florida. She showed the jury that Jason wasn't the common denominator. Lena was. She was the constant, the predator, and he was just her latest, weakest tool. Jason's lawyer, as agreed, offered no real defense. He stood and acknowledged his client's guilt, emphasizing that Jason's full and immediate cooperation, providing every password, every key, every flowchart, was the sole reason the prosecutor's office had been able to recover over 80% of the stolen assets, not just for me, but for all the victims. In my final victim impact statement, I didn't address them. I addressed the judge. I am not here to ask for mercy for my son, and I am not here to ask for the maximum penalty, I said, my voice clear. I am here to ask that this court send a clear and unequivocal message, a message that our children do not have the right to look at us as their living bank accounts, that we are not obstacles to be managed or assets to be liquidated. We are their parents, and that has to mean something. The judge delivered the sentences. Lena Cross was found guilty on all counts, including organized fraud, money laundering, and elder abuse across 3 states. She received a cumulative sentence of 18 years in a federal prison. Jason Porter, in light of his cooperation, received 9 years. And, as I had demanded, The judge issued a permanent, binding order of protection, barring Jason for life from ever accessing, inquiring about, or benefiting from my finances, my property, or my medical decisions. But I had one last move to make, the final twist. As the courtroom cleared, my own civil attorney, who had been sitting quietly in the back, filed a complete set of documents with the family court. Following my precise instructions, I had taken all the recovered assets and placed them into a newly formed irrevocable trust. The trust was for my sole benefit during my lifetime, and upon my death, the remainder of the funds would be donated to a charity supporting victims of elder financial abuse. By law, Jason Porter was now, and forever, completely disinherited. As I was leaving, I saw him. They were leading him out in handcuffs down a separate hallway. He stopped, and his guard stopped with him. He looked across the lobby at me, his eyes wide and desperate, pleading for one last look of softness, of forgiveness. One last look from his mother. I stopped. I stood up straight, my purse in my hand, and I met his gaze. I didn't cry. I didn't look away. I didn't offer him the comfort of a mother's grief. I just looked at him, calmly and squarely. As the survivor I was, the woman who had drawn a boundary of steel around her life. Then I gave a slight, formal nod and turned away. Outside, Donna Reyes was waiting. She wordlessly took my hand. Monica Hale met me on the steps, giving me a short, sharp nod of respect. As we walked out into the sunlight, Jason's old, cruel question finally found its answer. It floated in my head. Reversed. What face will you make when there's nothing left to steal? I didn't need to answer. The law had answered for me. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I'd love to connect with you, so please comment where you're listening from. Subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, like this video, and support us by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.